All right, here we are in the Readathon, and I have an incredibly special guest joining me. Special guest, would you like to introduce yourself and tell our audience how they might know you?
Yeah, so I'm Maggie Freling, and you might know me because I'm a longtime friend of the podcast, but from the Maura Murray case and the podcast Wrongful Conviction that I work on now, Unjust and Unsolved and Murder and Alliance.
But you're also a journalist, journalism teacher, journalism professor. Like, you have chops, as we say, in the world of journalism, also in the world of like innocence work, the world of advocacy work. Okay. When did you first hear about the Karen Read case? What were your initial thoughts about this case?
It was definitely through you.
Okay, sorry.
No, I'm a Patreon subscriber. I listen to all y'all's Patreons, as you know, because I'm always like frantically texting. I just heard it through you guys and was like, this sounds really crazy. If Rebecca thinks a case is crazy, it's probably crazy, and started looking into it. And I think Turtleboy is what got me. Like, I think we can all agree, obviously, he brought the case to front and center, but also just having a character like that, I think if he wasn't who he is, it also might not be as It's like he's kind of like a James Renner. Have you said that before?
He's like James Renner, but like not, I mean, James Renner, I'll just say it. James Renner is super nice. And Turtleboy is like I know a lot of people personally who hate him. Like, they don't know him personally, but like they know people who've been harmed by him or know people who feel like they've been harmed by him. He used to be a teacher, by the way. He used to be a high school teacher. He started blogging. He quit teaching to blog. And by the way, you know where the name Turtleboy comes from? It's the name of a fountain in like Worcester, Massachusetts, I think.
Okay.
And I think a student suggested he use the name, and he used to blog about sports. And his blog kind of took off, and he blogged about weird stuff. Like, I would say it's very safe to say, like, he uses language I would never use. He blogs about topics I would never talk about. He's sort of a lightning rod kind of person. He's sort of, he's been, I would say, social issues and in my opinion, on not my side. That being said, he's also definitely on my side about a lot of stuff. He blogged about, did you listen at all to the 13th Step about?
I didn't listen. I know you love it.
Okay, so the guy at the center of that, the addiction recovery guy, Eric Spofford, he blogged about that guy before we put out the 13th Step. He was aware of his abusing people in recovery. He just sort of has this people in power harming people really fucking bothers this guy, Turtleboy. And there's something about that that's very interesting to me. Today he had this tweet about, so here's the tweet he sent. He said, according to polls and Vegas betting lines, it looks like Donald Trump is going to be president again in January. I bring this up because the political reality is he will appoint a new U.S. attorney for Massachusetts, and Josh Levy will be out. Josh isn't stupid. He knows Karen Read didn't kill John O'Keefe. He wouldn't have spent all of his time and resources on a corruption case if he wasn't sure of this. He tried to make sure John and Karen got justice by providing evidence to the defense that would get any normal DA's office to drop the charges, but he underestimated how committed they are to the lie. If he's going to indict, he has about 6 months left to do it. So it looks like he's like sort of not a Trumper. So he definitely sort of picks and chooses his issues. But, you know me, I am no longer snobby about journalism like maybe I once was.
No, same, for sure.
Because, and I can say very comfortably that, I've had some communication with him. His parents' house, there was a dead turtle found outside of it. True. And of course, the anti-Karen Read people are saying he's lying about it. He's not. And there's something about his anti-establishment, abuse stuff that is interesting to me, because a lot of times people with the social political views he has don't land on that side.
Totally.
You know what I'm talking about?
Totally. I think, digressing for 1 second, I think this particular election and where we are in this country I'm friends with a lot of people that I never thought I would become socially aligned with.
Same.
Because I think we've all just realized how terrible both parties are. And it's not even about that anymore. It's just about trying to be a decent person and fucking get by before the man takes all of our money.
Same. I'll tell you one thing that I think about all the time. And, in meetings at my job, sometimes we'll have like an icebreaker that will be like, what are you most worried about right now? And I'm like, right now? I'm like, you haven't been paying attention? I've been paying, I'm 50. My rights have been degrading my entire adult life. My mother at my age had more rights than I have right now.
Yeah.
We really just need to look at the bigger picture and stop looking at these crisis moments and thinking like, I mean, every election is the most important election. But I mean, I've been saying since I was 22, if you're not thinking about the Supreme Court, you're not thinking. And the eye was off the ball a long time ago. So anyway, we're not talking about that. We're talking about Karen.
Well, actually, there is a part of the Karen Read case that this does relate to, which is in the work that I do. And as you know, this happens all the time. I work in wrongful convictions. This is not unusual. What is unusual is that there is a mass public paying attention to the corruption and in real time. And again, what is unusual, but we see in every single one of these cases, Casey Anthony, Scott Peterson, these are white people. And this happens to my people that I cover, my friends all the time, but they're people of color.
Right.
And so that no one gives a flying shit.
Well, that's to me, what's important and interesting about this case, one of the things that makes it interesting, there are no people of color involved in this case and there are no poor people involved in this case.
Right.
And that has activated people watching it in a way that other cases do not. And I've said this many times. Karen Read is not a more important defendant than anybody else.
No.
But what she's done and what this case has done is open the eyes of people whose eyes were not opened before. And I think, and I'm just hoping that they will stay open. Boston has a problem and has had problems for a long time. This is not new news. It's just not. I mean, you go back to Boston was the first police department in the United States. There's a documentary called Power on Netflix that I would encourage people to watch. And, there's been talk of significant reform in the Boston Police Department since the 70s. For 50 fucking years, this department has been trying to reform itself unsuccessfully. I mean, and all these suburbs of Boston are just cops who either former Boston cops, want to be Boston cops. I mean, they're just like little ancillary Boston police departments. So you can say, oh, but the Alberts were Canton officers. It doesn't matter. The culture is like the same.
Well, it's so interesting because so many like New York, not saying that we dealt with it, but we dealt with this decades ago. I mean, there's the whole documentary, The 7-5, about the 7-5 precinct in New York, which is another incredible documentary. But none of this is new. None of this is unusual in any sort of way. What is unusual is that it was a hung jury. That she's a rich white woman. That he was a cop. That he was a white guy. I mean, I see this with my guys in Chicago. They're black guys from the projects. They're convicted. There's no fucking question. There's no question. Like, oh, you're poor. You must have been doing something, but you must be in a gang. Sure, you hit him with the car because you're in a gang. Guilty of something.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I think that, we cover cases or we look at cases and we listen to podcasts about cases all the time. And it's like, how did this happen? This case is so interesting because we are seeing how it happens. And it's like people actually watch. This is a trial people are actually watching, and they're not watching with the glee of watching a bad person get put away. They're watching with the fascination of how is this going to be fucked up next? And it's
which is so unusual because thinking back to all the court TV cases, Menendez, again, just like OJ, it's like we're watching to watch the bad person get away. Right. And now this is like one of the first times we're watching a wrongful conviction potentially happen in real time.
It's to me, I can't remember another case of watching a wrongful conviction, except in my opinion, Scott Peterson is guilty. But
Menendez.
That's just my opinion. But
back then we were watching for his conviction. Right. You know what I mean? Like
I started believing he was innocent around. I mean, I guess I kind of thought he was innocent before the first documentary came out. I think it was Oxygen or whatever. I thought he was innocent. I think when we started listening to Serial, I started thinking about Scott Peterson again.
Really?
Because I started thinking about the fact that he was only convicted based on the fact that he was a shitty husband. And I looked back and I was like, I remember there not really being any evidence that he did it. And then I started look back at it, looked at the case, and I was like, I don't actually think. And they're actually, by the way, if anyone's listening who doesn't know this, there's actually no evidence that Scott Peterson committed that murder. None. The only evidence he committed the murder is that he had a girlfriend. That's it. That's fucking it. That's it. There are even witnesses like that saw him and like with his boat on the thing and said there was like nobody else in the boat. Like there's no fucking evidence that it's wild. Anyway, aside from all of that, one question I wanted to ask you about is that John O'Keefe's brother gave an interview to the media yesterday, and I just want to ask you about this because John O'Keefe's family and the way this courtroom was configured is they were basically sideways looking at Karen Read the entire trial. They were able to stare at her, and to the point where David Yannetti, one of her lawyers, sort of put his chair in a position to block her from being able to see them in her side vision because they were basically, staring at her the whole trial. And I hesitate to use negative language about them because their loved one is dead, okay? But they were leering at her the entire trial. They were. He gave an interview yesterday where he basically, I knew immediately she was guilty. My mother knew immediately she was guilty. We believed it immediately she was guilty. By the way, he testified and he didn't say that in his testimony. He said that their relationship was normal. He said different things, but that doesn't matter. In his interview yesterday, he said that he approached her after the trial and said, "You're not done yet," blah, blah, blah. And, he said that she would smirk at him repeatedly during the trial. Blah, blah. There's no evidence of this. He basically was looking at her. He was basically projecting his behavior onto her. My feelings about this are that this is another case where the state prosecutors are basically weaponizing and like bringing the family member into their story and weaponizing them in the story of a potential wrongful conviction. Do you see this in the work that you do?
I honestly can't say, I know it happens, and I don't speak to the families in my podcast intentionally. Their story has been told in the media generally most of the time, and now it's this person that's in prison, it's their turn.
Yeah.
A lot of times when they're exonerated, the families kind of understand at that point, but that is really common. For the prosecutors to kind of work alongside the families and the victims. There's victims advocates. So it is very likely the family is going to come out on that side.
Yeah. And the police union with their statement about Proctor and what they're like, he's blah, blah, blah. But the defense put up this like spurious and salacious defense. But they talked in their statement about Michael Proctor. They talked about the defense's, quote, conspiracy theories. They basically blamed Michael Proctor's behavior on Karen Read's defense. Yeah. No, this is like protecting these shitty cops. I want to go back to that for a second because I know you guys were speculating a lot. Like, can she sue or not? I also don't know the answer to that. She can't.
Yeah.
I mean, with a hung jury, she can't. And with an exonerate and with an acquittal, she can't. It turns out I was wrong about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say she could probably file some kind of civil suit against the family for the way they've treated. I mean, anyone could sue anyone for anything, right? But, in terms of like suing against the state for some kind of wrongful conviction, that can't happen. But, protecting a cop like Proctor, I posted a video recently that I made. I've been trying to make these little explainers, but it was about Chicago and how Chicago is on the verge of bankruptcy. Literally because of the amount of police misconduct lawsuits they are paying out. So Chicago is another one of these cities that is now dealing with the reckoning of covering up for bad cops for decades. So Chicago is literally the most in-debt city next to New York, and it's predominantly because of these lawsuits. So some crazy numbers I just want to mention. Chicago paid $153 million from 2019 to 2023 in wrongful conviction lawsuits.
How much?
Alone, $153 million.
Okay.
And that's just what they paid. There is another $57.2 million they just agreed to pay coming up. So this city is
I mean, that's like Boston. That's like 6 Sean Ellis's, basically.
No, that's what I'm saying. Exactly. So it's like, cops like Proctor, it is so disturbing the audacity these cops have to protect them because the only thing they're doing is hurting every single one else, the taxpayers. That tax money could go to schools and libraries. I mean, New York just shut down libraries on Sundays, and I think another day, a library, because the amount of money we're giving to police and their misconduct is is really disturbing. And I wish more people knew that. So also watching this, that's what I'm thinking of. Like a cop like Proctor is costing the city so much money because what else is going to come out
the
about
state
him?
of Massachusetts. He's a state
the
trooper.
State. Yes, the
yeah,
state.
it's incredible. I mean, I would for sure look up every case he's ever looked at. It's interesting because Kevin, talked about the state trooper he talked to about this. He said he worked in a different county. I think that makes a difference. I think there is definitely a cultural divide between the state troopers that work closer to Boston and the state troopers that work farther from Boston. And I just will mention that state trooper he talked to was much farther from Boston than, Proctor is working in the vicinity of Boston. So he's working with Boston cops, Boston suburban. We heard that he worked a case with Albert's brother, who's a Canton police officer. I'm interested to know why a state trooper would be working with a Canton cop on the Cape. Like what was that about?
Yeah. I don't know.
Were they working a case or were they on, I mean, this is just me asking a question. The question I would have is what case were the two of you working, a state trooper and a Canton police officer that took you to the Cape?
Right.
I think that's a fair question to ask.
Right.
Anyway, it's very much that culture. And I think that, since we know that he has this text thread that his boss, Buchanan, is a part of, clearly there's a culture there of just we can do anything, get away with anything, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
I mean, don't you feel like I said this to Kevin, and this is a story that I sometimes tell personally that I'll just say it here. I mean, we're behind the paywall. I don't care. I'm an adult now. I'll just tell you. When I was in college, I worked at a chain of pet stores. Everybody. I did it once, and then I felt so fucking bad I never did it again. Everybody stole from this chain of pet stores that we worked for. Like people did. I did it one time, and I just felt like I was so afraid of getting caught. I'm the kind of person that I'm so afraid of getting caught for crimes that I'm totally going to get caught. Can't do it. But there was one store, it wasn't the one I worked in, where every single employee was stealing from this pet store. Every single employee, when a customer would pay with cash, would not ring it up in the register and would just take the cash. Every single one. It was the culture of the store. The manager, his name was Pat. I never forget this. When he would bring on a new employee, day one would say, this is what we do. This is just what we do. This is how you do it. You get to keep the money. You give me some, you keep the rest. Okay? So every single day, every employee in the store would go home with hundreds of dollars. In addition to the $8 an hour they were making at the pet store, right? At the store I worked at, a couple of the staff members did it. They brought me in on it once, and I was just no. I went home that day with $100, and I was like, hey, I'm never doing that again. I felt fucking awful. I was like, I felt awful, and I never forgot about it, which is why I remember this story so well.
Yeah.
So it was just the culture of the store. One day, obviously the books didn't add up. Giant, they were short on millions of pounds of dog food in the store. One day they sent in a detective to buy dog food with cash. The guy didn't get a receipt, whatever, or he got a receipt and then they rang it up as a return or whatever. Everyone in the store was fired that day, and the manager and assistant manager got arrested. And everybody was shocked. Can't believe it. Can't believe it. And I remember thinking, how can you not believe it?
Yeah.
How can you not believe it? You were literally stealing. But that the culture, but they all it was just the culture. And I can honestly tell you, these weren't dudes that were objectively, they weren't stealing from other places. They were only stealing but that was the culture of the place.
Yeah.
And I always think about that when I think about the stuff that cops do every single day.
Well, it's a great example because, what the cases that I have, it's really incredible to me, the amount of wrongful conviction cases I've looked at. And I'm investigating one right now. I've been working on this project for almost 2 years now with CNN. The cops are they take the drugs, they don't log them, they either do them or sell them, guns, drugs. I mean, if anyone listened to Murder and Alliance, that entire police force was running drugs and guns out of there. So I like that example because that's a really small scale of what happens when you form this bond. I mean, we all know about the thin blue line and those connections and that brotherhood and that camaraderie. Yeah. I mean, stealing money at a pet store.
And they would never quit because they were probably making as much money as like a lawyer managing a fucking pet store. You know what I mean?
Well, it's funny. I mean, I didn't watch Power, but I did watch the 7-5. And I mean, these other guys in the department are like, yeah, we knew what they were doing. And we were either going to get a cut of it or we were going to get kicked out. And we wanted to cut it. We wanted to be on the inside. So like they talk about why they don't rat on each other, not just because they usually get transferred or fired or whatever, but like, hey, everyone else is doing it. Yeah.
It's just
everyone
the culture.
else is doing it.
Yeah. Did you read the New Yorker piece, by the way, that came out about, okay, so there's a really good New Yorker piece. I would recommend that listeners read it. It's called The Irresolvable Tragedy of the Karen Read Case. Ooh. It's one of the only pieces, I guess it's technically sort of like an opinion piece. It's one of the only pieces of reporting or writing I've seen on this that actually includes many, many, many of the sort of obfuscations and lies that a bunch of people involved in this told on the stand, but it includes it like sort of in the timeline of that night. But it also talks about just like the incredible amount of alcohol consumed by all these people and why that is so important in this case in terms of memory, in terms of like what could possibly have happened. And, you know, it talks about Trooper Paul. It talks about the fact that like the state like had no stuff. It's a very, very, very good piece. One of the reasons I loved it so much is because, you know, just sort of talks about this huge thing where like, you know, this, you know, inexplicably there are all these butt dials between people, quote, butt dials that weren't answered and butt dials that were returned. And then a butt dial that was like, I'm having sex with my wife and my phone butt dialed somebody and then he butt dialed me back. And it's like the fact that like, when you look at the faces, when you look at like Brian Albert's face and he's saying these things out loud, you can tell that he has done this. I'm sorry. I mean, you can tell he's done this before. You can tell that he's been on the stand testifying in court, said a thing with authority, and it's been fine. You can tell that he has said things with a straight face to a supervisor or to an investigator or to, you know, a family member, a victim, or to a witness. Said it. They've believed him because he has he has resting cop face, and it's been fine. You can fucking tell. And in this case, it's like we're all watching, so it's not fine. And then, so the New Yorker piece just does a very good job laying that all out.
I love that.
Yeah, I'd really recommend people read it. It's quite good.
I'm definitely going to read it. I also really appreciated something you said was about like how rare it is for someone to get charged with perjury. I mean,
they don't.
It doesn't happen. I will tell you that in one of the cases I have, one of the girls, she was a girl at the time, she was 16, she got on the stand and told the truth and said, hey, they forced me to say this. This guy didn't do it on the stand. And they did charge her with perjury. She did 5 years for perjury, for telling the truth on the stand.
Jesus.
And you know what? She was a 16-year-old impoverished Black girl from the South.
Of course.
That's who gets charged with perjury when they actually tell the truth on the stand, not these fucking cops.
I was DMing with somebody who I am not going to out at a major Boston news outlet that I will not out, that was saying that they were disappointed by their own outlet's coverage of the Karen Read case. And I'm just going to tell you that I'm also very disappointed at their outlet's coverage of the Karen Read case. And just off the top of my head, they said to me, like, what stories would you as an editor or reporter have pitched to the newsroom during the trial? And I was like, okay, here's just a few, literally off the top of my head, as in my DMs. Okay. Why did Canton's chief resign in March of 2022? He was the dude who, quote, found pieces of taillight on the Alberts lawn days after the incident. Why was Lucky only interviewed by police 18 months after he tried to tell his story to them? Which witnesses changed their testimony in real time on the stand and which didn't? What an interesting infographic that would make. Was it unusual or improper for Cannoni to allow the McAlberts to sit with O'Keefe during closing arguments? Were there complaints against Brian Albert while he served as a police officer? Those are public records and would be easy to look up. What about other complaints against Proctor? Who is ARCA? How about a little infographic story about that? I also would have pitched something on online movements on both sides, on like sort of the troll movements on the anti-Karen Read side. I definitely would have pitched something on the inverted video. Have inverted videos been seen at trial before? How did it work? Did it have to be done manually, or was that actually a standard piece of police evidence? The burden is on the Commonwealth. This is taxpayer money. being used for these pieces of evidence. So like, this is something I would remind people of constantly. I certainly would have had a little piece about how do butt dials work with phone experts. Like they just like missing the ball during the trial
it's
about
really incredible.
Small articles that you could write in a day by talking to someone at Verizon. So how do butt dials work? How does it typically work? Like
it's incredible. That's incredible that you just listed off their job.
I mean, literally, they had, and this outlet, by the way, had a bunch of people covering the case, and it was the same shit you're seeing everywhere else. Today in the Karen Read trial, the state presented this, the defense presented this. In this conspiracy-fueled case, people don't know what to make of it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I literally can tell you that I watched two people lie because they said something different today than they said yesterday, and that's the story.
Here's what I'm going to say as a journalist, going back to full circle or the beginning of our conversation. I do not think about, read, or legitimize corporate or mainstream media anymore. It is all a joke. It is a farce. It is lies, and it is advertisement. I do not fuck with any of it. I mean, we know that. And I think we have seen the New York Times, their coverage of what has happened in Gaza is despicable. These institutions are completely crumbling. I have messaged friends at the New York Times when it was the Daily.
People in the New York Times, by the way, agree with that.
No, they do. They do. That's what I'm saying.
I know reporters
who
work there who are very upset about the lack of, about the coverage of the genocide in Gaza. People in the New York Times are very upset about a lot of the coverage of a lot of stuff.
Yes.
Trans coverage. I mean, there have been issues over and over and over again. The both sidesism at the New York Times is bad.
Just from the top down, they had to run by any of their reporting. It was CNN had to run by their reporting with the Israeli News Bureau to make sure that it was okay to put out to the American public. This is how illegitimate these news organizations are. So I want to, again, just give huge credit to people like you who are independent and are reporting on these things. I think we should, we both used to not take blogging as journalism seriously, but I now do not fuck with mainstream media. I follow independent journalists, independent bloggers, independent news sources, because looking at something like the Boston Globe, for example, would be really disappointing and upsetting.
I'll tell you, we at NHPR got sued I wasn't part of the reporting team in the 13th Step, but I oversaw the podcast part of the project. And, I was sitting in on edits and stuff, and I was very aware of the legal situation. We were actively being sued while the podcast was being made and while it was being put out. The lawsuit actually was just resolved a few months ago. And, it was a state court issue. So I think the fact that our outlet kept going under the pressure of being sued by a guy who's worth more than $100 million, like it's very, very different to work in an outlet that will do that, and just be so comfortable that no, we have enough there that we're going to do it anyway. That's why I still work there. I wouldn't work there if we hadn't done it. I wouldn't work there if we hadn't done that. And and I know I get upset that we don't do things, not at the way we do things. Then again, I left the newsroom. I'm no longer in the newsroom in the podcast unit, in large part because we have more freedom to do stuff. I mean, I oversee Civics 101, which is the show that we respond to stuff. And, that definitely is my sensibility, is that on that show, we can just tell the truth. People don't like it, but we do it. And it's we're not siding anything. We literally lost a listener. A listener sent us an email. We did a quick turn episode on the Trump immunity decision. We talked to a professor who just described what it meant for the future of the democracy, for the president, for any president going forward, not just for Trump, but for what this means for the power of the presidency. And then she talked about the fact that what it will mean if Trump is elected, which it looks like right now he likely will be, which is, by the way, what the data says right now. It's not her opinion.
Yeah.
We lost a listener because she said that on the podcast. She was like, I can't believe you let your guest say that on the podcast. I completely disagree, whatever. And I wrote back and I said, we're always sorry to lose a listener. But sometimes when you hear the truth and you don't like it, is not a good reason to put your hands over your ears to what is true. And this is what news outlets are doing. It's what news outlets are doing, and it's not
they
okay.
And that news outlets are beholden to their investors.
Yeah.
I encourage everyone to look up who owns the Times, who the investors are, who owns CNN. I mean, it is all censored.
NPR, the fear. I mean, NPR is very much, and my issue with NPR is it's very much driven by fear of, like, it's gone too far of like being afraid of reactionary. You're too biased. They're not. Their best reporting was being done when they didn't give a shit about how people reacted to it because it wasn't biased. And now it's become so reserved because of the fear of perception. And it's like, Jesus Christ. Like, I completely agree with you.
People are afraid of the facts, right? And I think that's what we're seeing in the Karen Read case is the anti-Karen Read people, the like Blue Lives Matter
they're
people
not real,
are losing their minds.
By the way, do you know that those people a lot of them aren't real?
Oh yeah, like the bots. Yeah.
Or they're the same people with multiple accounts.
I would bet that cop, the trooper that Kevin talked to, is really like going home and like processing what he is seeing. I really think that this is like they are now forced to confront what they know happened, assuming he's a quote good cop. This person Kevin talked to, he knows this shit happens, but now they're being forced to confront it and see it in real time. And it's like it's like cannot compute, like they're being forced to see the truth in real time.
Yeah. He couldn't process the idea that nobody went in the Albert House. He could not. He's like, I just, that was one thing. It's like, he also couldn't process the idea that evidence was planted because that's not something he would ever do.
Right.
But he also couldn't process the idea. He's like, yeah, a dead cop is found on a lawn. You investigate the people in the house no matter who they are. Not in Boston, you don't. Not outside of Boston, apparently. I don't know. So I'm so glad that you also see not just the fact that the case is bananas, but it's important. I actually think it's important.
It's so important. And I want to see more people talking about, and again, I really only listened to your info about it, so I don't know if there has been, but I really want to see or hear talked about more that the only reason we are knowing this is happening is because there was an independent journalist. The mainstream news was not doing their job. There was an independent journalist, and we have a white, female, wealthy victim.
Yes. And the white female wealthy victim activated a bunch of white female wealthy people who, by the way, probably listened to a bunch of shows like yours and had that seed planted already where they were like, oh, I know about this. I've heard about this before on Undisclosed, on Murder in a Lie.
I hope so.
I think so.
I hope for Karen Read, I don't think her and I would have particularly gotten along in the past before this.
I suspect the same thing, by the way. I think about that.
But I hope she comes out now and is like, you know what? This fucked up thing happened to me, and I'm lucky I had the money for this defense attorney. I am lucky that I had my privilege that people paid attention to. And I hope she goes out and becomes an advocate for people who fucking don't. And she could give me a call and I will be like, girl, let's do this together, because we need more people like you who says, hey, this can happen to anyone because it happened to me. So let's help the people whose voices are not being paid attention to.
Amen.
That's what I hope for Karen Read.
Amen. Well, that seems like a great place to end it, Maggie Freling. Thank you so much for joining me on the Readathon and taking time out of your day. By the way, are those like cicadas in the background there in Texas?
Yeah.
That's a wild soundtrack. I love it.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't
like it.
Hear them anymore. It's apparently like the biggest cicada year in history or something
Great
crazy.
Foley for the podcast, man. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Partners in Crime Media.